YouTube, welcome back to another happy Friday. Another orbit of the moon around the sun, and we are here once more with the day of birth of myself. Nothing particularly special or interesting planned, so I figured I'd gather some of your Q&A feedback, constructive criticisms. Of course, you guys are very kind, and so let's jump in and do some random Yu-Gi-Oh! Parasocial slightly QA here. What card would you want to get pregnant? It's weird, like, what a weird, disgusting question. Moyi. It's not even the question that's really getting me here. It's, XX the racist gamers, XX. Well, you know what they say, birds of a feather, etc, etc. Weirdest IRL fan interaction. I'm sure there's gotta be a few. I remember this really vividly. It was 2018, and I was at the venue of my, I think, the first ever European Championship that I attended. And in the strongest, thickest German accent, a dude walks up to me, who I've never seen before, don't know who he is, never heard of him, and he says, "Immigration is looking for you." Now, listen, everyone loves a little bit of racism. Okay, wait, hold on. I think I said that weird. I don't mind a little bit of racism. No, that's also just doesn't sound good. Was I just the victim of a hate crime? But it was extremely jarring and really confusing at the time because I thought this was maybe like venue security or something. I was getting a tip-off from a random guy to let me know that, hey, listen, German Polizei is outside the building ready to arrest you. I'm just like, what did I do? Dante didn't fill out his ESTA form or get an appropriate work visa? That was definitely one of the stranger interactions. Happy birthday! Thank you, Cookie Artist. If you could go back in time, what's something you wish you could tell yourself from 10 years ago? No matter how bad things are right now, just remember, it's going to get so much worse. Conversely, what message do you have for yourself 10 years from now? Make sure to buy as many ultimate rares as possible. This is going to help process the stock exchange fund that's going to be... Happy birthday! What are the origins of the Baby Ceresaurus meme? Baby Ceresaurus is a dino that when it's destroyed gets a special summon from the deck. The origin of the story is pretty simple. It's destroyed. It gets a cool effect. Sorry bro, you reap what you sow by Facha235. Dino player, I activate Ovi. Target baby. Response, the grenade I threw at her. Classic. Ponixio. Happy birthday, Farfa. Thanks for what you've done for the community. My two questions, I cut out the second one, I guess it must have sucked. Does it feel weird when people ask you for signatures and pictures when you're at big Yu-Gi-Oh events? Not necessarily. To be honest, I am quite a recluse and introverted, although it might not actually seem that way. Crazy to think, I know. I'm not really like super sociable. I've never been very outgoing and extroverted in that sense. So sometimes events can be pretty hard and socially draining in a lot of ways. I do sort of have to like mask like, you know, full social one-on-one interaction in a way where I just kind of want to like sit and play my card games in peace. But I do sort of force myself in a way to really come out of my shell whenever I go to events. Although it's been a while. Basically, I really just try and tell myself without these people, I would not have the amazing, very privileged, lucky career that I have. So it really is a blessing, but it's just from a personality standpoint, it can be quite hard. But I think for the average person, it's not that big of a deal, right? Because like I said, I wouldn't be able to do this without these people in the first place. So that's kind of what I remind myself. Blue Eyes Craft asks, how many languages can you speak? Well, English, American, Wisconsin, je suis arabe, ou un petit peu français. Taros says, happy Tuesday. What are some of your favorite series you did, solo or collab, that you stopped because they didn't meet your viewership expectations or other factors, and what would you have continued to make episodes of? I did really like the Masochist series that I was doing, and I thought it did do pretty well, even in terms of numbers and stuff. I just figured that running a Masochist series alongside Simo, I just felt like I was encroaching his style and stuff like that. We never actually ever talked about this or anything. It just seems like having two Masochist series just felt kind of weird, I suppose, for people who are only interested in that one specific niche. But I did like really enjoy doing it. The other one is Stealing Only. I love that series. I didn't really sustain it well in the sense that I kind of kept changing the rules up a little bit from episode to episode, which maybe hurt the consistency. But I loved doing it because it was just fun. Just deck building and sort of like this kind of semi-sealed environment is the most fun, enjoyable aspect of any card game, really, is like sort of like the deck building aspect, which is kind of why my frustrations with Modern have really come to head, I suppose is the term. Is that what you call it? I don't think there's as many deck building innovations as there was years ago, and maybe in some sense you could argue that Yu-Gi-Oh just has never been that crazy in terms of deck building. It always has had staples and, you know, summon exiled forest, pop, activate graceful chariot. Like, maybe it's always been this way and I'm just like nostalgia baiting too much, but it does feel like deck building and stuff is the most fun, enjoyable aspect. And I really like sealing only for that, because I had to like really think about like the card I was going to take from my opponent's deck, then put in my deck, did it have any synergies with cards in my collection, etc, etc. So if I could bring anything back, it would definitely be that one. Out of characters! Good content, you should subscribe to him. My brother and sister-in-law are about to have their first child. What's some of the best advice you can give about being a dad from what you've learned so far? Number one thing that I can probably say is learning about it from a scientific and a psychological perspective has actually really helped me truly understand what I'm doing and what I'm getting into. Learning about like children's brain development and what actually their mind is capable of at age 1, 2, 3, etc. All of the different milestones. You know, you can find yourself sometimes getting frustrated at like random things that doesn't make sense to get frustrated at with like a 2-year-old, right? Like they don't have the logical processing of like an actual adult brain does, and so you kind of have to like relax and calm down and be like, okay, look, I understand you want to put the rice against the window and then throw the cucumber at the cat, but this is not something that is appropriate behavior. So as much as that sounds really fun, it's just not something you kind of should get frustrated about, because ultimately that's their way of experimenting with the world and understanding everything around them. So learning about it scientifically has definitely helped me to understand what is going on and how I can sort of like interpret the actions of a child. Stand firm. Happy Tuesday. Can we move on from the hand trap meta? We play monster versus monster like Pokemon, but instead of bench, we have spells and traps. Yu-Gi-Oh would be such an awesome game if instead of cards in hand, we had like a bench where you had like this resource of maybe monsters. Just play Pokemon. What if Yu-Gi-Oh was, but just go play the game then. No one's forcing you to be here. Are you going to play the old games collection? What's your favorite game in memory from those games in that bundle? Well, I did try the early days collection back when it peaked at a glorious 400 concurrent players on Steam. I think those games, for the most part, haven't really aged that well. I know some people love them and absolutely are diehard fans of Dungeon Dice Monsters or whatever, but I don't know, I'm not really a big fan of those. What I do really love is some of the sort of middle tier games of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like the PSP ones, the PlayStation ones with like the Tag Force and stuff like that. I would do anything to have a remade single player game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And unfortunately, it's just never gonna happen, right? Like, ultimately, you can't fill enough skins and cosmetics and gems and battle passes and all of the modern day capitalist gaming industry style microtransactions that help make the stonks go beep boop. With Genesis on the rise, will there be more unique series? Okay, sneak preview. I'm gonna pitch this to you guys. Wonky Quartet Genesis wheel, where we spin a wheel and hit the point number every single week. So like, you know, 27 point deck, you build a deck, you can't use the same archetype week to week, it gets put on a ban list, and then we can have random other secondary wheels. I'm literally stealing everything from Doug right now, where you have like debuffs and stuff like that you can put on your opponent, like you can give them minus 10 points for their deck building challenge, etc, etc. Maybe you can have like an extra staple or something on the wheel, and then we just take this forward week to week until we run out of archetypes and everyone gets bored and we kill each other, because that's what the Wonky Quartet does. Thoughts? Osiris Handel asks, what is your favorite Scottish food? Oh, look at that, a roll. Nice Scottish roll, a wee sanny there. Vegan, of course, halal, no pork products. Favorite Wonky Quartet member? This question was asked by Nim. Well, naturally, I think my favorite Wonky Quartet member is actually Nim himself. Yeah, this is not a sponsored hashtag ad message. Happy birthday! My questions. Why are you gay? Best deck. How do you plan to handle explaining your career to your kid? My classmate's dad is a firefighter. What do you do for work? Mostly hang out with 3 other idiots and yell about a children's card game is probably not gonna cut it. First and foremost, it is extremely commendable to be doing such necessary key work in society such as YouTube. How else will these children learn what finger and hajime negate means? 15 years ago, the most popular occupation you would ask a child is, you know, doctor, lawyer, engineer, etc. Or maybe that's just like my own personal experience coming from an immigrant family. Maybe that's not normal. Astronaut? Listen, we all know that Arabs only have 3 relevant industries to work in: doctor, lawyer, engineer. I don't really know. I suppose we'll jump that hurdle when we get to it. He's currently only just under 2 years old, so hopefully when it reaches the point that he's able to properly communicate and understand society around him, gently explaining the concept and understanding of entertainment from a positive, healthy, educational mindset might be the way to approach it. So we're gonna scrap table 500 in 3 months. You heard it here first. How would you as a content creator like to educate him about social media in general? If it was up to me, social media accounts would be banned for anyone under the age of like 25. Though seriously, looking at some of the things that literal 12-year-olds have access to on the internet today, I just don't understand. The fact that like a parent is willing to buy a 12-year-old like a smartphone, this device that has access to literal billions and billions of different combinations of images and video footage and information on the internet that probably doesn't need to be fully encapsulated and grasped by a child. This is still a Yu-Gi-Oh channel, right? So I don't know, maybe I'll buy him a Nokia 3310 and he can play Snake until he's 16 years old. Then maybe he can use like a fully integrated supervised Instagram account or something. I don't know, dude. Genuine terrifying stuff for anyone who actually has a parent. What is the best interaction you've had with a viewer at an event? Well, this is very simple, actually. It's still here right now. After watching my streams for many years, you probably noticed at this point, if you follow me on twitch.tv/Farfa, I have the same music taste as a 14-year-old in 2002, which, I mean, I guess I was a 14-year-old in 2000. Well, I wasn't that old. Point is, this guy brings me up at the, I think it was the UK National Championship, a Breaking Benjamin album cover that I've just had sitting there on display this whole time from all my videos and streams. So that was definitely the most wholesome thing I've ever had because it's probably my favorite band of all time. And now I have some memorabilia given to me by, you know, a fan of the channel, and it's not even a Yu-Gi-Oh related thing. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. W Mega K says, Happy Tuesday. I just want to know what life is like for you. I imagine there's some challenges with this style of job, especially trying to manage a good work-life balance. Actually, for the most part, it's quite, I don't want to say easy, but there's definitely a lot of positives when it comes to being essentially self-employed. Being able to pick your own hours, working throughout the night or in the morning, or a couple of even just minutes here and there throughout the day on your phone to be able to answer a couple of emails. The real stress comes from the fact that there's no like security net. When you have like a salary job, you sort of just know I'm going to get X amount every month and that's going to be able to help me towards this and this bill and that, etc., etc. Whereas when you're essentially just working for yourself, sometimes Yu-Gi-Oh good, sometimes Yu-Gi-Oh bad. And so you notice that when it comes with the revenue, the watch time, the viewership, and, you know, having that fluctuating number can be very scary. But thankfully, being in a position where you have something like consistent sponsors, long-term subscribers and stuff, such as you guys, thank you. And it does really sort of help you plan ahead at this point year to year, not just like week to week back in the day. We're really struggling at the 20,000 subscriber mark, but thankfully we're doing pretty well right now. So, you know, I just cannot thank everyone enough for all the support over the years, because ultimately I wouldn't be able to do such a cool, awesome job if it wasn't due to you people watching time and time again. Did you drop out of college at some point in your life? And if so, what was going to be your career? At the age of 17, after going through high school, I eventually began my first degree, which was theoretical physics. You believe that? I was the person who was going to do math at one point. Dropped out of that one real quick and decided to change over my course to social sciences. And after, you know, a little break, taking a year out to do some work and get life experience to find myself. Drinking matchas in a Starbucks or something, I suppose. Got my degree in history, specifically focusing on Nazi history, modern European history, some civil rights movement as well. Joint major, I think, is the term you people use as well in politics. So that's, I suppose, what I have my undergrad, bachelor, something like that. And then I did a postgraduate degree in teaching education. I did half of it. I did a placement at a school for a few months. Then I dropped out of that one because my YouTube career was basically taken off at that point, and working in a teaching environment, big shout outs to teachers, by the way. I don't know how these people do it, but getting up at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. every day, going to school, and then leaving at like 6 p.m. I just couldn't bring myself to essentially have like 13, 14-hour work days for... In terms of the salary, it just wasn't that good. Long term, I just saw myself as doing something a little bit more... I don't know if like meaningful is the right word, because teaching is extremely meaningful, but it's such a arduous, long, hard thing to do when you're just not really being fairly compensated for it. And on top of that, doing history specifically was quite hard and long and arduous because there's just so much. Like, you're reading like novels and novels from students every single week, right? Like pages and pages, compared to like a math teacher who just sort of like, you know, you've got numbers and there's a right or wrong answer, and it's really that simple. You can't really have a sort of correct mathematical answer. It's either right or it's not. Did they use the right formula? Did they not use the right formula, etc.? VJ says, happy birthday. Is it stressful to think this career relies on the state of the game and the public perception of Konami? How do you manage it and deal with where the views of Yu-Gi-Oh are negative? Well, ultimately, that's sort of the problem with YouTube in a specific niche. It would be cool to be able to just make a video on anything and everything that I have shower thoughts on. My biggest passions in life, I suppose, from a interest and knowledge perspective, is things that would probably get me doxxed and, you know, assassinated by some right-wing freaks on the internet. So I'd rather not do that in my current position with a family and stuff like that. So we're gonna stick to the very, very politically neutral Yu-Gi-Oh! The trading card game. So hopefully you guys really love and enjoy my content forever. I don't know how much longer I've got in me. It's only so long I can summon Engraver, dude. Whenever Yu-Gi-Oh! Died or you lose interest in it, you're gonna shift your content to other games, or would you stop streaming? Well, we'll ride this gravy train for as long as it lasts. How long is it gonna be? I don't know. Hopefully forever, actually. I quite like this job. It's enjoyable. Would you guys watch me if I played RuneScape? How about a progression series in World of Warcraft? What if we opened 100 Magic Arena packs and then dueled in a Hearthstone battlefield with benches of Pokemon? Thanks everyone for tuning into this episode of Birthday. See you next year or something. Appreciate you all watching for so long. And again, like I said, I wouldn't be able to do this without the viewership, the sustenance of you all tuning in every other day or week or whatever you get time to watch one of my silly, dumb videos. So thank you so much for being around for this long and allowing me to do what I do. And hopefully I can keep providing and giving you content you enjoy for as long as I can. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Until next time. Bye-bye.